There is the recent release of the kind of live album, and then of course the live event, which happened, but for those of us watching will be live coming up on Thursday or Friday in Australia. So another side of Paul Carrack with the SWR Big Band and Strings. And Paul Carrack and Band, the 2020 World Tour, the one-night global streaming event. But before we get into any of that, the Turn Up for Recovery video, and I'll ask more about the process of that, how you got into that later on, but my biggest question is about Sheffield Wednesday. Because I saw that in the background of the video, and I saw the little bit of Wednesday and went, okay, yeah, that makes sense because he's from Sheffield, and looked a little closer, and lo and behold. So would it be safe to say you're a Sheffield Wednesday fan?
Yeah, for my sins. I'm afraid so. They got me very early on, and I'm afraid to say it became a lifelong addiction. That sadly I've passed on to my sons and even grandson. But I begged them not to do it to my grandson, but they've gone and done it to him, and he's in there. So it's character building though for them, because it teaches them how to deal with disappointment and misery and that sort of stuff, which is a good thing for life, I think,
Yeah, there's some of us that are fans of assorted teams. I happen to be a big Minnesota Vikings fan for the NFL here in the States, and I don't know why I chose that. It's kind of the same thing. It's constant misery, but you stick with them and that slight chance that maybe something will work out. And I don't know if any future offspring will become Viking fans, but there's part of me that hopes not. But then part of me that hopes so they can kind of, have some company, I guess.
But it's the hope that kills you, really. That's the thing,
Oh, yeah. Every year, there's that slight chance, and then the rug gets pulled out from you. But it'd be nice to see Sheffield Wednesday get back up in the Premier League. At some point, I'm sure it will.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, since we dropped out of the league, whatever year that was, it's probably about 20 years, I think. The chasm between the next division down, the division we're in, is called the Championship. And it wasn't that massive a gap before. Well, it was a gap, but now it's huge. It is a chasm. And the sad thing is that you're a sports station, aren't you? So you don't mind me talking about sports.
Actually, I work on a sports station, and this is a music station, but I work on a sports station, and I mean the place where I'm at, actually, it's Green Bay Packer territory, so like everyone knows about sports. So yeah, go for it. Okay. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, for anybody that might be remotely interested in English soccer, I mean, where was I? I was sort of describing the discrepancy between the Championship and the Premier League. And the Premier League has all the money. They get all the TV money. It's ridiculous, the money, actually. The players are on ridiculous salaries and all the rest of it. And so it's the holy grail that the clubs in the Championship are breaking their neck to get into the Premier League, and most of them getting into colossal debt. And it's a problem. But anyway, for the next half hour, maybe distract me. We'll talk about music.
I will do my best to do that. And there's the good thing is there's plenty to cover. And actually, I'll kind of segue via soccer back to the music. One of the teams that did manage to make the leap was Leeds United to the Premier League, which leads to Leeds, which is where the Thursday broadcast is taped, I should say, or however the proper terminology is now. It is not literally to tape, but we know what it is. So why Victoria Hall? Why was that chosen as the venue for the performance?
Well, it's not because it's in Leeds, let me tell you, because they are our sort of second biggest rivals. Going back to soccer for a second. There's two clubs in Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, and then there's Leeds, who are up the road, and we all hate Leeds. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, Leeds, beautiful venue actually, which is the main reason we chose it to do this filming, because it looks great. It's an old Victorian building with a fantastic architecture. So it looks pretty spectacular, and that will help if the music's not happening. Probably, we can look at the nice architecture. But and they were able to accommodate us because a lot of theaters are mothballed at the moment. So we wanted to take our whole touring setup into a theater to film it, because I haven't done too much of the online from your living room sort of on your iPhone stuff. And we wanted to show ourselves because we had done, we started a tour in January. We'd done almost 30 shows in the UK, and we play kind of theaters, maybe 1,000, 1,500 seats, something like that. And we were looking forward to going to places like Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Australia, Japan. And we wanted to show people, what they were missing in a way,
How did you get the idea specifically to go, okay, let's do this, do our whole set here, having seen there are other bands that have been doing these one-off concerts too. You mentioned the at home, that's everywhere, but there have been some of these let's have a one-night concert here in the States. The Garth Brooks one was probably one of the first examples, and they had drive-in performances around here. Was that kind of the inspiration of, hey, we can do this in a different way and try to put on a full-on video, but still give the live, almost in person, charge the tickets because it's going to be that good, that kind of idea?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, and it, for us, it's not cheap to do this, to get the venue, to get the whole crew together, our musicians, the proper streaming facility. So yeah, it just seemed like we wanted to film the thing, show people what we were doing this tour. The tour was going great, and we would have probably recorded a show and filmed a show at some point anyway for, archive or for Blu-ray or something like that. But with this situation, we were shut down in mid-March, and we thought we were being pretty cute because we rescheduled a lot of stuff for August, September. And then it obviously became apparent that wasn't going to happen. And then we were scratching our heads thinking, what can we do? We've got my band chomping at the bit, wanting to do something. I was kind of been okay because I've got a little studio at home. That's where I am right now. So I've been busy doing new stuff and doing a couple of things remotely. But we wanted to do something to keep everybody motivated. And if we could cover our costs, that'd be fantastic. So that remains to be seen. But and just thinking that it may be, hopefully not the full picture for the future, but for the foreseeable future, it's probably going to be another aspect that we need to try and embrace, to be honest.
It's your band members on tour, so there's a certain amount of familiarity, chemistry, and understanding of the music. But how much did all of you have to kind of keep the juices flowing a little bit so you could go back for a one-off? How much rehearsing did you have to do? Or was it kind of well, we were doing this half a year ago, we can get back on stage with little work? How did that go?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. There wasn't any rehearsing, not together. I've done a lot of things over the last 20 years, but I started my own little label and I formed this band of guys. None of them were famous names or anything. They were all from my hometown of Sheffield, and they're all good players and they love this gig. And we're quite used to sort of doing a tour. Then I go off and do my things. I've been playing keyboards in Eric Clapton's band, for example. And it's not unusual for there to be a couple of months and then we just get back together and it's kind of all in there, but it's fresh. So this was a bit longer of a gap. You know, it was getting on for 6 months. Everybody got bought into the idea. Everybody listened to the tapes of the last gig we did and did their rehearsing at home. And initially we thought we would take this venue for 2 days and take our time doing it. It just wasn't cost effective. And so we decided we're going to do it in 1 day. So the crew got there early. They set up. We arrived late morning. We did a sound check. And then we played our set. And that was it. And you know what? It was great. Everybody said, you know, it's going to be weird, no audience and everything. And it was a bit surreal. But it was just so great to be back, you know, to be playing together. We loved it, to be honest with you.
Is there anything...
In fact, we're thinking of banning the audience for the future tours. No. But no, it was great. We were relaxed. It was fresh. We didn't have to worry necessarily about, you know, entertaining or anything. We would, because first and foremost, we're musicians, and we don't have there's no bull in our show, you know. We just play our music, and so it was great. It was fantastic.
Is there anything particularly special about this that viewers are going to see compared to other performances of you and the band live, or is this pretty much, or is Victoria Hall really the selling point in this?
No, I mean it is a good venue. It's our up-to-date set that we've been, you know, we started this tour that should have taken us all over the world. On the level we are at as I say, as an independent artist, it's good. We kind of punch above our weight anyway on the circuit we're on, the theatre in the UK, and it's a good show, you know, good lighting. And is there anything special about that? It's just that each year we try to make the show a little bit better in terms of production. The repertoire is kind of, we've got a number of songs that we always do that are, you know, ones I've been associated with, are hits, if you like. But we also are putting out new stuff all the time. So it's evolving all the time. But no, I think it's just the fact that people wanted to come and see us. They had tickets and we couldn't do it. So we're bringing the show to them. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to it, you know.
I've been asking a variation of this question to other artists over the past half year of the pandemic, of how are musicians adjusting to not being able to perform live? How are your creative juices flowing? Some people are writing, some have done the at-home performances, but then also concerned about being able to perform live and having that industry still hold. And by industry, I mean right down to the clubs. We're not talking like Live Nation, the big ones, but everything. In the UK, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think at this moment, the case loads increasing again, is kind of another wave is coming up. I could be wrong on that, but I think I've heard some element of that. But regardless, how are fellow musicians adjusting at this point now, half year plus into this pandemic?
I think it's very tough. It's very tough because we were the first ones to get locked down. We'll probably be the last ones to get back, you know, the venues and such. For myself, it's not been too bad because, you know, I mean, I'm okay. And as I say, I've got my place I can work. And I haven't, over the last few years, because there's been so much time on the road with various things, haven't had as much time as I would like to mess around in here without a sort of time type pressure, you know. So I live in a fairly nice part of town. I've a garden, so not too bad. And I've got a bit of, you know, I've got a bit of money comes in, a bit of mailbox money comes in every now and again. But for you know, musicians as a whole, it's tough because to be honest, playing live has kind of is the bread and butter these days, or was, and it was thriving. People were coming to concerts, it was the live scene was happening. So there's not been a lot of help for musicians, to be honest. A lot of people in regular jobs have been helped to some extent by the government and stuff. I don't want to get political about it at all. I mean, musicians, we're used to fending for ourselves and famine and feast and all that sort of stuff. So I don't want to get into that. But it's tough. I mean, the guys who work with me when I'm on the road, I pay them well. And then when I'm off doing other stuff, they have their other little gigs, but there's nothing there, nothing, because everything is closed from that point of view.
So from the creative standpoint, what creative juices are flowing right now for you in terms of coming up with newer material? Is there any sort of influence? Does society come into any influence at all? What's happening surrounding what's happening right now as far as your songwriting and creation goes?
Same stuff as ever, really. I just mess around. Lyrically, I kind of just free form, and then something sticks and I piece it together somehow. But I'm not an intellectual. I'm not a reader. I'm not political when it comes to the music. I'm interested in politics and all that. When what's going on is blowing my mind, actually. But I probably should pay less attention, I think, than I do. I might sleep better, but I don't sit around waiting for divine inspiration anyway. I just come in and have fun with my toys, and I play a bit of everything. And I think some of the things, when I listen back, there's a few things that are influenced by the lockdown thing. I mean, personally, I was worried about my kids. I've got 4 grown-up kids living around London. And initially, I was very concerned. Oh, my God, people are going out panic buying. We're all going to die. What's going to happen? Then it calmed down a bit. And that's when I got in here and started playing. And I found it very, very therapeutic. So, but I'm very pleased with the stuff I'm coming up with. It's sounding good.
Do you think it's going to... Do you think it's going to make up like an album or an EP, or do you start doing like a single here or there at some point?
No, I just start messing around, as I say. But no, it will be an album. Ideally, it would come out. Basic plan was it would come out in the new year when we started touring again. But who knows what's going to happen there? But yeah, no, there'll be an album of my normal kind of stuff and whatever you call it, pop. And I've also been making an album remotely, a second album with the SWR Big Band, which I think is going to be really great, better than the one, dare I say, that's just come out.
Okay, that's good to hear. And I'm going to get to that actually just a bit. That's fascinating to know about this other album. I am curious, when you write, and being a multi-instrumentalist, is there one instrument or another where you tend to prefer to start writing? And also, is it more music or lyrics that tend to come to you first? How does the songwriting process work for you?
Very, very rarely write a lyric first. That's the sensible way to do it, is to think of a title or an idea and then put some music to it. That's the sensible way of going. I very rarely go that way. I usually come in, I just start jamming with, the keyboard and stuff. As I say, I kind of free form. And I kind of take a little idea and develop it. And I'll sing something that sounds good, and then I just try to make sense out of it. And sometimes it's quite quick. Other times the lyrics I find are harder. as I say, I'm not a reader or a thinker, but you know, I can get there in the end. But I probably never had an original thought in my life, but a lot of my stuff is borderline cliched anyway. But hopefully, you can just twist it a little bit and make it, not too offensive. But that's why I occasionally write with particularly Chris Difford from Squeeze,
right,
who is predominantly a lyricist, and that is so easy and quick because he'd just give me a piece of paper, and but his stuff doesn't always translate because his stuff is kind of quirky and which is great, and it's always good to have a couple of Chris lyrics on there just to break up my Moon in June lovey-dovey stuff, So that's always good, but it doesn't always sing as good as it looks on paper. And to me, the sound of the words are quite important as well, and how nice they are to sing, can make a big difference.
I think there's going to be another song or two with Chris that'll appear on the next project.
Well, we haven't so far. We've spoken a couple of times, and he's promised to send me a couple of things, and I've promised to send him some ideas. But obviously, we haven't been able to get together. I know he's been doing some stuff online, sort of getting people in and chatting and that sort of stuff. But well, we'll see, because there's still a bit of time, so maybe we'll come up with something.
Cool. You mentioned SWR, of course. The SWR, Big Band and Strings, and that was the project that's out, and now this third project you're doing with them after the Christmas one, going back a decade, and now these two. Okay, so first off, for those that aren't familiar, SWR, that's Public Broadcasting Organization, Southwestern Germany, and they've had this
Correct.
long-standing big band. It goes back to the early 50s, I believe.
I think it does, yeah.
How did you get hooked up with them in the first place for the Christmas project?
They just called me up. I didn't know anything. I didn't know them from Adam. They just called me up and said, we're going to make a Christmas album, in the big band style, the usual kind of suspects. Would you want to sing on it? And I said, yeah, thinking they meant one or two tracks. But it became apparent they were happy for me to sing the whole album. So I'd never done anything like that before. I went over to Stuttgart, and we made an album in a couple of days. And I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to hack it. I'm an old rock and roller, a self-taught musician. But they're nice guys, which helps, because sometimes the jazzers can be a little bit sniffy, to us rock and rollers. But they're not. They're great. They're nice guys. And so we made that album. Of course, it got a little bit of support because they're affiliated to the radio station over there. And we did some concerts, and we've done concerts every year since then. At Christmas time, I go over, do just a few concerts, and I think I've got better at it, fronting that big band. And then I think last year they said, well, how about doing something a little bit different? They got the opportunity to do a series of TV specials, and they invited me over to do a TV special as a guest vocalist. And we kicked around some repertoire and put it together. They came up with some arrangements, gave me a clue what it was going to be like. And then I literally just flew over to Stuttgart into their big, lovely studio they got over there, TV studio. And over 3 days, I think it was 2.5 days anyway, really, we recorded this TV special live, and with a 33-piece band, because they had like the big band here, string section on the other side, rhythm section in the front, and I'm stood in the middle. So it has to be live because the whole band is coming down the vocal mic. And so, yeah, and I was winging it. And I think it has some really good moments. If it had been in a controlled studio type environment, I might have honed in on some of the vocals a little more, but it's what it is. It's live. And I think it really has some good moments.
Well, and it's the sort of thing when I listen to it, I go, okay, this sounds like it's a studio recording, like it's all planned that way. There's only like a couple times listening to the audio of it where I even hear something like, okay, it sounds like the microphone's a little bit like a little directional or something, and just like once or twice, everything else sounds like, oh, like if someone didn't know, I think they would probably presume, oh, they must have rehearsed this a bunch, and this was like take 16 or that's the impression I have to imagine most people listening gather from that. So there's definitely a sense of professionalism. At least that's my takeaway from listening to the album.
Oh, they're super professional. You know, they are fantastic. I mean, they're German for a start, but no, they're really, really good. They just give them the music and away they go. I think most we ever did of any one song would 3 takes, maybe on the whole, possibly 2, you know, possibly a run through, and then we did it and that was it. But no, they are very, very good. I mean, they've had all kinds of Grammy awards and everything, you know.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know. I was just going to say the band are absolutely on point. Mm-hmm. It's only from my own personal insecurity that I think, oh, I could have done that better. But as I say, it's what it is. And the other album that we've been working on has been, as I say, in a more controlled studio environment, albeit remotely, that they would record. That I really think I have nailed some really good vocals on that one. So,
what is, if you're allowed to say, what's the direction on this? What's the music, the content on this one?
Well, the idea was to go a little bit, because this has all been new to me. The repertoire has all been new. I mean, we've done Frank Sinatra songs. I didn't know anything about. I've got to know him, got to know the Sinatra type music, but I never got it when I was a kid, you know, or it was, you know, but and I think that's helpful in a way, because when we do a Sinatra tune, I'm not trying to do a Frank, you know, it's not what they call it, a pastiche or something. It's just me singing the Frank Sinatra song with a big band and trying to find my way through it, you know, around it. So we've done all kinds of repertoire, and sometimes I think, really? Okay. Well, but I'm game for anything, you know. But then on the one we've currently been working on, and that will come out next year sometime, it's a little bit more bluesy, a little bit more what we used to call rhythm and blues. I don't know what they call it nowadays, but, you know, we've done a couple of Bobby Bland songs, some Ray Charles, just generally a bit simpler, probably, because a lot of those big band arrangements are pretty tricky. But this is a bit kind of simpler. That was the idea. We've done things like a couple of Etta James songs, and yeah, I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I noticed there was a good number of Ray Charles tunes on the album that came out, songs that he had done them or such. But there's, what was it, 3 or 4? I can't remember off the top of my head, but as I'm going through, I'm like, oh, there's another one on there. Is that more your end? Because I know you've delved into that before. Is that more your desire to have those? Is it on their end? Is it mutual for that?
Well, I'm probably more comfortable in that neck of the woods. I mean, I did love, still do love Ray Charles. My elder brother, 4 years older than me, kind of introduced me to him at a fairly early age, and I've always really loved him. And a track like Sticks and Stones is pretty basic, and that's not going too far off the beaten track, you know. Whereas Danny Boy, you know,
Right.
But no, I mean, as I said, I'm a bit easy. I'll try anything. And so if they say, how about this? I'll say, okay. I mean, it's a little bit passive. I'm trying to enjoy myself, my music. I'm not trying to, it's too late to kind of worry about how it's perceived, you know, as I just want to enjoy music and grow even at this late stage as a musician. And I will try anything.
If you could only sing one song the rest of your life, what would it be?
We love you Wednesday, we do. We love you Wednesday, we do. Well, you know, it's funny that because I do write and I try to put out new stuff all the time. But to be honest, I could probably live without writing. I'd probably be quite happy to sing How Long for the rest of my days, because every time you sing, I never get fed up with a song. You know, you can always find something in there. I mean, I know for a lot of artists, you know, when they record a song and they get the quintessential version and that's it. And it never, you know, it doesn't need to get any better. For me, you know, I'm always, without going mad, without taking the liberties with a song, it's always possible to just find subtle nuances of phrasing or what have you. And so a song is kind of a vehicle in a way, but
yeah. On the point about how long, and I was thinking about this listening to the SWR version of that, and you're in a broad sense, the phrasing, the style, and of course it's in the same key as the original recording.
Yeah.
It's largely the same. Sometimes, at least to my ears, sometimes an artist they'll do a different version of a song and then they keep doing that over and over again. I've heard that sometimes, like with Phil Collins, some of his live versions he's done with Genesis or solo, like started doing it live differently and has done that ever since for decades compared to the studio recording. In the case of How Long, it's relatively close to the original. Is there any, like, as over the course of decades of performing that song, is there anything you found you wanted to kind of modify in it, even down to the subtleties that maybe most listeners wouldn't pick up, but you know, okay, this is different from when we cut this in the studio with Ace compared to how I'm doing this over the years?
I think I've had my mileage out of that song in a way. Actually, funnily enough, we did do quite an unusual version. It's never been released. But we did a string session for the last studio album I did. It was called These Days. And we added strings onto some of the tracks. They were arranged by a guy called Richard Niles, who American guy. And he said, I really would like to do a version of How Long. And he's done it. So we did just strings, though, nothing else. So it's, you know,
wow.
It's quite adventurous. I'm not sure if I like it or not, but it hasn't been released. It might be at some point, but no, I mean, it's a very simple song. There's nothing to it. I'm amazed it's endured as long as it has. I mean, it basically got that hook.
Mm-hmm.
And the verse is very simple. But, you know, you just got room to, as I say, just to improvise a little without going too far off the beaten track.
I've always been like the thing that I always home in on that is the chord right before the chorus, right? That one where it just kind of goes off a bit. And I'd find myself trying to play that, which, I mean, now you can find all sorts of demos everywhere, but I'd be like, okay, what does that go to? And for me, it almost seemed a little progressive for its time. Like it seemed to be the sort of chord progression I would hear in pop music, straight up pop music here in America, a lot in the late 70s, early 80s. I thought this song before I go look back and go, that's 75? Really? Oh, it doesn't sound of its time. It's a subtle thing. That one chord, I maybe I'm overreading that, but
You are.
Great. I clearly
It's
am.
a B minor.
Right, that's it. That's
Or
all
a B
it could.
minor 7.
Yeah,
That's only because we didn't know how to play a diminished chord, which it probably should have been, really. If we'd have known how. I mean, seriously, back then, you know, I was pretty, I mean, as I say, self-taught musician, like most rock and rollers. I'm teaching myself piano. And when for example, just the chords on the verse, which is very simple, as you know, you got your B flat bass and you play an A flat chord to a B flat chord and keep the pedaling on the B flat bass.
Right.
Now, I thought I'd invented that chord right there, you know. But then the passing chord you're talking about is a B minor. And as I say, if we'd have known what a diminished chord was, it would have probably been some sort of diminished chord. I don't know.
Fascinating how that all goes in. And I do remember when I try to get it, I'm like, oh, this actually is fairly simple. But to try to read that's the trick to do it by ear. But I think that goes. It's a small part of why that song I think endures. I mean, a lot of it's just the sentiment, the flow, the melody. It lasts 45 years on. You've had. I mean, it depends on what one defines as songs that are sort of in the pop music canon, but it's rare to be involved with multiple acts and have those. I mean, probably Attempted, Living Years, et cetera, et cetera. With all the songs you did, I'm going to home in on Mike and the Mechanics. Being somewhat of a Mike and the Mechanics fan because I know a good amount of Genesis. Is there, what would you say is the most underrated Mike and the Mechanics song you performed or sang on?
Ooh. I really don't know. To be honest, you put me on the spot there. I don't think anybody's ever asked that question. I'm just thinking. There's a song called "Time and Place." I forget which album it was on. That's a pretty nice song. But going back to How Long for a second, which that record didn't turn out anything like I had imagined it when I wrote the song.
Really?
Yeah, because I imagined it as a Motown song, you know, like Reach Out, I'll Be There or something, stomping, you know. But, you know, we were just old hippies, basically. So it just turned out to have that mellow thing. That mellow groove. Anyway, sorry, I digress. And you want to talk about Mike and the Mechanics?
No, that's quite all right. But that's. I mean, there's plenty of good material, and I've had "Beggar on a Beach of Gold." That album kind of stuck in my head mentally since I got this set up and bouncing through the songs and that. And
yeah, that's a good song.
Yeah,
that's B.A. Robertson, who co-wrote a lot of songs with Mike.
Mm-hmm. It's a solid one. Another Cup of Coffee, and of course, Over My Shoulder.
My sort of manager, producer pal hates Another Cup of Coffee.
Really?
Yeah, and yeah, it's weird. I don't know why he doesn't like it. It's almost like I'm starting to think, is this just a thing now? It's just a riff that because it's very popular.
Uh-huh.
And we hardly ever play it because I know he's sitting in the audience going, but I don't know why. I don't know why, because it's very popular, as you say.
Right, I know. It seems to fit right down the middle with that style of music that the group was doing, at least as a listener.
Well, I think what they were trying to do with that and with a song like Over My Shoulder, which I don't think was much of a hit in America, but it was a big hit in across Europe. Because when Mike and the Mechanics sort of got together, it was that very sort of synth pop, and obviously with you had the Genesis connection but with a very pop producer, Chris Neal. But it had that kind of, still had that kind of progressive type of sound, although the music was pretty basic. And some people might have thought it was a little too pompous or whatever, but the with things like Over My Shoulder, Another Cup of Coffee, it was trying to bring it back in to simple, guitar based drums kind of sound. Right. I think that's what that was about.
Yeah, I think the album worked well. Yeah, I remember being a little underwhelmed by the American reaction at that point. Just tastes evolved, but then I noticed it was going bigger overseas. Like, okay, well, good. And when the one time I was in the UK back in 2000, that was my one chance to get a couple Mike and the Mechanics CDs because you couldn't get them in the US anymore.
Really?
But you could get them over in London, and that's where I picked up. I think I can't remember exactly which ones, but like Rewired or whatever it was around that time. Well, I can get them here. This is, of course, pre-streaming era. Yeah. To conclude, we'll start with we'll conclude with how we started, and that's Turn Up for Recovery. And the video that came out was posted September 19th or something like that. You and your son Jack performing a few songs, he on drums, you on keyboard, and it's just those two parts, which it's remarkable how two instruments can fill out so much sound. I'd have to remind myself, that's only two. There's nothing else in there. How did you get involved with this project?
Well, going about the sound, I mean, it's funny because often, as they say, less is more, and it's funny sometimes when you keep piling stuff on there, it gets too dense, and the sound gets smaller.
Yeah.
It's funny. But with something like that, you just got a simple drum beat, a keyboard, and the voice taking up plenty of space, often it works. So how did I get to know about it? Was that the question? Sorry.
Yeah. How did you get to do the 12 minutes worth of music for that?
Well, as I said, I've been playing in Eric Clapton's band for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now. I've played on a few of his albums prior to that, but then he eventually, I think somebody dropped out, and he called me up and asked me if I fancied, going on tour. And it was probably his last kind of world tour, arena type tour. And so I've been involved ever since with that. And of course, the Crossroads thing that we do every year, his Crossroads charity with the clinic in Antigua. And his wife, Malia, started a sort of side project called Turn Up for Recovery. And I think the idea initially was that to put on smaller gigs all around the country and localized and do it that way. And then unfortunately, with the virus and everything, that put the kibosh, as we say, on all of that. So they decided that they were asked artists to, do a little thing at home. So people started doing the low key little acoustic things at home, and then it seems to have gradually. Initially, I did one at the beginning of it. I did a piano vocal of Love Will Keep Us Alive, a song called that, and then they asked me to do something else where they'd have a featured artist. So could I do 3 tunes? And I got my son Jack to play drums, and we did the 3 tunes. So that's all.
And then, like I said, it's a good performance, and it's a good little taste there. There's,
it was the hottest day of the year. And it had been hot for a week, which we just don't handle very well in the UK. And so we're very sort of laid back, shall we say. And it's a very sort of, I did wonder, I thought, is this going to be too, this is not really rock and roll. Is this going to work for them anyway? They liked it. And I don't know. I haven't seen, because I'm not a big fan of watching myself, so I don't know how it's been accepted, but I think it's gone down okay.
It definitely sounded that way. I can tell you that much for sure. Well, there's a whole lot more to watch again coming up on Thursday in a whole lot of time zones. It said like 8:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific in America. So like say someone's watching it here in the central part of the U.S. Central Time Zone. Is that still going to be 8:30 or is it 7:30? How does that adjust for those?
No, it's going to be, we were only allowed 5 time zones. And the idea was that it would be 8:30 in each time zone. So if you're on the West Coast, it's 8:30. If you're on the East Coast, it's 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know in the middle. I guess you take your choice. You can watch it. You can watch it whenever you know. So what are you guys? An hour?
1 hour, and so like here in Wisconsin, that'd be 7:30 p.m.
or 9:30
or 9. Yeah, do that around. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. You kind of time shift whatever works best, which is a whole lot of options when everyone wants to watch it. And yeah,
and
so
it's there for 24 hours. And I think you can, eventually just rewind it or skip forward, or it's up there for 24 hours and then it comes down.
Okay. Well, so there's a limited amount of time. So anyone watching this, definitely you want to watch that. Again, go to paulcarrack.net. There's a lot of information of how to get there. And
if sorry to interrupt, but I just want to sort of emphasize, because we've spoken a lot about the big band record and everything, but this is actually my normal situation with my normal band.
Right.
This is the set we do on tour. Mm-hmm. And it's got things like Living Years, How Long, Tempted, Love Will Keep Us Alive. It's got all those songs are in there, and some of my probably more obscure for US listeners. But no, it would be great, because actually looking at our numbers, we do have a lot of people listening to us in the US. Mm-hmm. And people are always saying to me, when are you going to come to the US as a solo artist? It's difficult, but and I would love to do that. But so problem is just reaching people and letting them know this is happening, and hopefully they'll come on board.
At least it's something. So there's that. Of course, the new album, Another Side of Paul Carrack, the SWR Big Band and Strings. Make sure stream that, etc., etc. And lastly, as far as the Premier League goes, as an Aston Villa fan myself, I will. Yeah, I jumped on board with that a decade ago when I decided to pick a Premier League team. So speaking of frustration, that's been a thing for the last decade of, hey, great, we're going to get relegated every year. And then it finally happened. I will, as much as a fan can do, hope to beat Leeds United and Sheffield United as much as possible.
Thank you.
In the Premier League.
Thank you, sir.
We'll do our best. Paul, thank you so much for taking time today to chat with us about all things music. It's been a lovely, insightful chat. And best of luck with all the other music projects you're working on, and we'll hope to hear more great stuff from you down the road.
I hope so too. Thanks for your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.